All right, it's only taken us 7 years, but finally, it's the How to Win in the IWA Tutorial Volume 2. I'm Matt Riley. That's Michael Cook, the IWA expert. We're going to do a little video here and do a quicker, faster, easier, more digestible way to learn the game quickly so you can understand how to play. Mike's going to run the show here. I'm going to be the voice of reason. So you're new to the IWA and you're probably thinking, well, how does this game work? How do I win? uh, various things. So it's all on Mike now.
Yep. Okay. Luckily, nothing's changed in 7 years. So,
Yeah. Well, this game's been around since 1985, and it was a play-by-mail wrestling game. It's still play-by-mail, but it's also play-by online, and you can send your matches in electronically through email. But we're going to talk about the basic strategy approaches here, so
mhm.
you understand how to score higher than you would if you just didn't try to. But
Okay.
there's a few things here. There's some more advanced stuff we'll go over probably at another show. We want to make this kind
Mhm.
of a quick in, get in, like 5, 10 minutes and get out. So no pressure.
All right. Got it. Okay. So, first step, you need to know where your league is, and it's going to be in one of 6 locations, and those are federations. Once you know your league, you were able to go look at the holds, but the holds are specific to each fed. Uh, Different holds are used in different ones, so never cross up and use the wrong one. Make sure you're using the right federation. That's step one.
I think we've all had somebody tell us, "Oh no, I sent in the strap for the
Oh
wrong
yeah, I've
bed."
done it. I think everybody's done it once. It's
Yeah.
easy to do, but a lot of the time starting out, you're just going to be in one, so that'll make it a little easier not to cross up anything. But yeah, know where the league is. You'll need to know that for the due date, but also for the holds.
Right.
We'll just use gold because that's going to be our easiest example. And there we go. So you have a total combination of 90 holds. You see they're broken into the first 60 are called wear down holds, the last 30 are setup holds. Your strategy is going to be a total of 15 holds. You'll use 10 wear down and 5 setup holds. Now, the good news is, of the 90 holds, you don't have to worry about tracking or thinking about the majority. On the front, you have a total of, is it 12? 30?
Well, as far
Okay.
as
Yep.
tracking,
Yeah.
usually about 12. I've
Yeah.
found.
We could go to 16, but yeah, 12 is what it should be based on the last, 5 years now.
Yeah. So
It's
essentially,
been a
if you
while
look at the
since we've had
hold,
to worry about the others.
right, you see a hold that's like, let's
So,
say, for example, like big boot 23 or
yeah.
cross armbar 8 points. Most of the
Yeah,
holds
that's what I
don't
was going to go
move
next.
that many points, so
Mhm.
don't worry about all the holds.
Yeah. So, really, when I'll show you the chart in a minute, but you've got to use or just track 12 holds. So that's pretty good. You need to use 10 out of a possible 12, not 10 out of 60. So it's not as intimidating as the list may initially look. And on the back, there's a potential 10 holds, and you need to use 5 of the 10, not 5 out of 30. So what you'll need to do, and you can ask Matt, me, anybody, and we can give you a little bit of a chart to give you a few cycles before, and that's really all you need to go off of. But you need to look at the holds that were of the first 60, the previous cycle, if it was a 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, or 25. If it wasn't one of those 6, the previous cycle, you won't have to use it. You see, we do track 23s and 24s. That's more of just people that have played a while. Those used to be factored in, but they're not really anymore. So we can actually do this, and you'll see there's 12 holds listed. Not bad at all.
That's easy. How can I win at
It
this
really
game?
is. So let's take it one step further on the front, then we'll go to the back. So your strategy will be a total of 15 holds.
What if I want to surprise him and put, hold number 90 at number one?
I don't know what they would do with that. Typically, they put the closest hold, so I think you get 60, which if we go
Okay.
look at 60, that's not one we want to use.
No.
So, so we would have this list here. And we actually get to do a few things all the time that are just a continuous item. It's always going to be absolutes and strategies. And those are the previous cycle's 30s are both good to use in your strategy. The previous cycle's 25s are both good to always go in your strategy. The combinations of what will drop out of these holds is, oh, sorry, not the right one. One of these. So a previous cycle 29 and a previous cycle 28, a 29, 27, 29, 26, the 28s, essentially everything in between 30 and 25. Two of those holds will drop.
Drop to what?
Oh yes, yeah. See, you're gonna have to catch me on things like that. I say them like it's obvious, but they will go to the next cycle's 25s. So that's why we don't worry about the 24s or the 23s, because of the group of holds in between 29 and 26. We're trying to pick which two are going to 25, and we're going to keep those two out of the strategy.
Right.
So we know 4 of our 10. So we'll highlight that. What we have to do is we have to look at those other 8 holds and pick which ones not to use.
Right.
And that's where it'll start to get a little more challenging. But the easiest thing to say is you track this as your hold chart. And that's, like I said, the past 2 cycles. But you want to also know what combinations had dropped in that federation. And you'll be able to kind of see which ones are used more often. You get the benefit that if it was in the previous 3 cycles, it won't happen. And so there's a lot of things past just the initial that helps you kind of filter that down and make more reasonably educated guesses. We're working that a little more towards the end and maybe in the next video. But yeah, that's kind of the first part. So it's really not too bad. Like I said, you get to 12, you automatically have 4 of the 12.
Right.
And every other cycle, you actually get the benefit of knowing a 5th hold, because this is hold number 25. And what's the name of that one? Let's see.
Fall away slam, I think.
Yep, a fall away slam.
Yeah.
So every federation has this hold 25, and it's always going to be a 30, 29, or 28. But the good news is when it's a 29 or a 28, it'll never be one that goes to a 25.
Right.
So it's kind of a freebie. You see, this was a cycle where it was a 30, so it counts as one of our 4. But next cycle, we know when it's a 29 or 28, it's still safe to use, and then we'd have a 5th. So half of our strat is going to be the same basically for everybody that does one.
Right.
It's those other, 5 out of 7 that you pick that's going to vary, and that'll be kind of the differences. But like I said, there's some nuances where you can kind of start working, and that's our other video, the workshop, that
Yes.
we can kind of start to explain some of that.
If you're watching this video
And
now, You should definitely watch this video before you watch the workshop.
Yeah, yeah, because you need to know about a hold chart. You need to know your federation. You need to understand that there's 12 holds you're looking at, not 60. That it's nice that they
Right.
print that whole list, but uh, they could save some ink if they cut it down for us.
Right.
So that's kind of the front. First steps of the front, anyway. Any questions on that? You
Well,
got it.
I would say, one thing to keep in mind is as you build your strategy, like a more advanced thing is where you place them. But for now, we're just looking at getting the holds
Yeah.
together. Just especially if you're in the NWL, you're in the rookie league, don't worry about where you put them right now. Just worry about getting your highest score
Mhm.
possible, and that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The reason for the placement of the holds that Matt's talking about is when you actually win titles, we have an IWA report um, and some of the in league, but it does use point flow as a tiebreaker to see who's better if you have the same score.
so if you
So,
want to just quickly throw in like 1 through 10, we'll just pick some numbers, like
yeah.
just you know.
Okay. So, yeah, let's use. I'll just put them all kind of at
Mhm.
the front section here that we use.
So what you're looking at here is the score for this strategy, okay? So every wrestler has 1 through 15. So if you're a wrestler and my wrestler are competing, we're going to see hold 1 to 1. We'll talk about that in a second, but right now you're just putting your scores in, and you see below like the 22 was worth 30 and the 25 was worth 30. So if you were competing, that would be the score you'd start building towards for a total point value. We'll get to that later on, but for now it's just a matter of just seeing what's out there and again, trying to avoid the 25 as you go ahead. Uh,
Yeah.
once once the 25 hits, then you can use it, but you want to try to avoid it. It's
Mhm.
kind of the simplest way to say is just avoid the lowest scoring holds, and you'll be okay.
Yeah. And lowest is always going to be 25.
Right.
That's just the way it is in this. So, yeah. Two of these holds when we get to gold in 3 weeks will be a 25.
Bum,
And
bum,
like I said, that's
bum.
where we just have to pick a combination of two of all the potential between 29, 28, and double 26. Uh, Now, one thing to note though, there is no double 29. That's like I said, that's another thing. Every other cycle we get to use hold 25 because it is a 29 or a 28, but that combination is the only one in that range that is
So
not ever used either.
so if I'm brand new and I'm thinking
Mhm.
29, 27, 28, 20, what do that mean? Like they might understand where that comes from.
Yeah. So that's what it was the previous cycle. So when you look at the back of your bulletin and you see this right here, that's what occurred that cycle. And that's what you have to use towards the next one. So you use those rules of always use the two 30s off the back of your bulletin, use both 25s, and then you want to write out the other 7 holds and decide which of the 5 out of 7 that you use.
So for example, if the previous cycle there were two 26s that went down in point value to 25
Mm-hmm.
points.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to use those two 26s as your projected drop.
So you're saying the 26s went to 25s, but we would use those because they're 25.
Right. I'm saying like you wouldn't pick that as your like, you know, uh you wouldn't
Right.
avoid them.
When they are 25 or when.
Like if I have a hold, right? Let's
Yeah.
say like I'm gonna say Gargam here. Let's say 26, like 33
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking real quickly, and one had just dropped down
Oh,
to
okay. Yeah.
25.
You
So
want to
you
go another step then. Okay. I see.
right. Yeah.
Yes. And that's where, like I said, you need to, doesn't have to be as, I keep going to the wrong one. Sorry. You don't need anything as elaborate as this, really.
But it
But you
helps.
do want to look, yes, it does. And that's why, like, you won't have to worry about that because we'll crack it on the workshop or we'll help you build it. Um, but you want to know what your Fed was, and what Matt's saying is that 2 cycles ago, both of the 26s went to hold 25s. The way that these drops work, where it's 2 out of, those possible combinations, it doesn't repeat that drop until at least 4 cycles. So the last cycle of gold had some 26s, and we'll look over here and see in our chart. You see here the 26s went to 25. And last cycle it was the 27s that went to 25s. The cycle before that, which would be the third, was a 29 and a 27. So we know that the last 3 times that we had our Gold Federation, they used 29, 27, 27s, and 26s. So you see there was actually even less combinations for us to use. So that's the absolute rule. Once you get down to the 7 that you can eliminate is what's happened the last 3 cycles. And you won't have to worry about those. So again, that's several steps to start eliminating. That's the easiest one. That's the guaranteed one.
Right.
The next one, make sure we go over this. The federations happen in order. So the first one will be iron, steel, gold will be the third fed that we're talking about. If it happened already that cycle, it won't happen in gold. So that's probably the tougher thing for somebody that doesn't, they're just starting out tracking. Make sure that you either track it yourself or, get that information from somebody else. But you want to know what drops happened already that cycle as you go through. And that helps eliminate more options. You see in this example, the Steel Federation that happened right before gold was a 29-26, so we removed that. You'll notice that although iron had happened earlier, it had one of the golds. Right. So it did not do anything, but we did get to eliminate another. So there's a lot of, after that first step of just building your strat that helps you, get this down to a more reasonable number.
Right.
But yeah, for the most part, know that you always pick last cycle's 30s and 25s. And then you pick 5 of these 7. And you start tracking a little more towards the exact drop combinations that happened in your federation the past few cycles and the federations of that same cycle on the federations before that one. Those are the key points to track. If you track those, you will be able to cut out a lot of options every cycle and make some really good guesses.
I think the number one area most players, when they have a hard time grasping and they start thinking like the 29-27 or 28-26, trying to figure out that number. And I think it's important thing always that it's kind of a thing that clicks in your head. I always say that poster at the mall, you look at and it'll be like a bunch of blotches, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's a sailboat." It's like that's kind of how the holds are. Once you kind of click it and figure it out, you're fine. But it's really about focusing on what the strategy, the hold value is, not what the hold itself is. And that's what you're looking to really chase.
Yeah, and the good news is if you're narrowing it down to that much, the range of your strategy being the perfect strategy is a 501 on the singles, you're not going to have a terrible one. You'll be a competitive player if you at least track just those steps where you know what's happened the last 3 in yours and the federations prior. If you do that, you will have to make some, tough choices between a few, but you're going to be on the right track and you're going to have a pretty good start.
And remember, the score you're looking at to get what's called the star is a 495 or higher. So if you get 495, 496, and so on, you earn a star. And that's really a good sign of like skill. The more stars a wrestler has, the better they've scored overall. And in the game, if you get a 495 or higher, you're going to have a good chance of making the title page.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the leagues that are super tough, maybe not, but don't worry about that right now. Just focus on scoring high and let chips fall where they may. Do you want to do the back end or you want to do
Yep.
the more? Okay.
Yeah, we'll do back now. So we have the back, like I said, 30 holds. We need to track nine. The nine we want to track will be the previous cycle's 45s, 44s, 43, 42s, and 41s. Not too bad at all, right?
That's
That's
easy. I'll have a 501 in no time.
yeah, it's both better because it is less than the front, but the issue is you got to pick 10 out of 12 on the front. You got to pick 5 out of 9 on the back. So it's actually more to reduce, or so you think.
But there's help.
Yeah, there is. Let's take this over there.
There you go.
Okay, so we had some absolutes on the front where we knew that the previous cycle's 30s and 25s are always used. And we even had that, special hold we talked about, hold 25, which is always a use in your strategy.
Right.
You have one of those on the back as well in hold 90.
Superplex.
So 90 could be a 45, a 44, or 43. What we want to get out of the back is we want to pick the next cycles 45, 45, 44, 44, 43. So we know hold 90 will always be used. Similar to picking both 30s, you get the benefit of always using both of the previous cycles 45s. Every other cycle, that'll be 90. So in this instance, we have two of our holds that we have locked in.
Right.
If this was a cycle like the cycle before, and I'll actually pull that one, I can show it. Just to make sure because this is what makes the back much more manageable. So this would have been the cycle before, and you see that we could have picked both 45s out of it. And hold 90, our guaranteed back hold, that's always good. We would pick that. So we would actually have 3 of our 5 every other cycle. So we either have 2 holds we can use of the previous 45s, or if hold 90 isn't a 45, we have 3 of our back 5. So not bad at all. Good start there. So
Yeah.
at that point, we're picking 5 out of 7 options to fill out our front. And we would have not really much on the back. We point out one more thing about hold 90. Actually, let me just do it this way. So the back 5, you always want to use your previous cycle. So like I said, both 45s need to be in your strategy. And then you need to use one of 2 43s from the previous cycle, 1 out of 2 44s.
Right.
And the last one will be, so you see you had 2 42s and 2 41s. The guarantee on the back is that one of the 41s or 42s will go to 44, but only one out of those 4 will do it. So the last one would be either a 41 or a 42. So while you have more holes to pick less from technically percentage wise, you don't have all the combinations that you have on the front where it could be anything from 29 28 down to double 26. On the back, you have to make a choice of 1 out of 2 43s, 1 of the 2 44s, and 1 of the 4 41s or 42s. So that makes it a little easier. It's more of 3 small decisions, coin flips almost.
Right. And we always talk about on the show about uh you know don't chase a hold. Think, well, this one is due to drop or this is due to happen. Like user percentages, figure out the best way, like what might happen. For example, I would say the 3-point play in football, the field goal, right?
Mhm.
Here, the 41 is the field goal. You take the points. It's guaranteed to
Yes.
go up, but it might only go up to 42 and 43. 42 probably will go to 44 or could go to 44, but if it
It could
doesn't, it
go
might
to
go to
41.
41. So there's a swing there. So as you're trying to
Yeah.
narrow down your strategy and get the best possible point total, those decisions you make will have repercussions. And what happens
Mhm.
is if you pick a really great back five, but have a really low scoring front 10, you're going to have a score that's in the mix in the middle. So you want to try to get both scores in the front and back as high as
Mhm.
possible.
Yeah. So what Matt said there, the lowest possible for any of these will be a 41. Kind of like we know the front 12 that we're using, the lowest is going to be a 25.
Right.
So obviously we picked both 25s on the front, but we know we only need to use one out of four on the back. But if you use a 41, your possible lowest score would be 1 point higher than if you pick the wrong 42 that goes down. Um, so there's a little bit of that. It is safer to always go with the 41s. And if you're, starting out, you may just want to go with the 41s to get that point, get comfortable.
Mhm.
Once you track a little more and start making, those intuitive guesses on the 42s, that would help. But yeah, it isn't a bad strategy to start out using the 41 in that hold,
Mhm.
just because you know that you're not risking extra points. So, and even, I've been playing, 25 years or something, and more than that, actually. I still do that sometimes because, especially if we get into like a contest or something, that point is huge. When you're just
Right.
trying to make it above those cut lines, and um, yeah, so
Now, one thing to keep out in mind as well is that you never want to repeat using a hold. If
right,
you
yeah,
repeat any hold, what the IWA will do is default to the next available number. So if you did like one twice, they'll default to two. And two right now is what, like 3 points?
that's
I'm sorry, 19
19,
points. Okay, so
but
still
still, that's a big hit.
it's not
Uh,
that's not 2 points. That's 10 points off your score. So you're already going to be at like a
yeah,
disadvantage. And
that's why you see I always do things like this, where I put the holds like this, and I actually cut and paste into where I want to go. I find if I'm sitting there and typing things out, I'm more likely to do something like that. Where if I actually am moving over that hold, it won't be in the list anymore. I can't make that mistake.
I've done a
So
similar thing. I actually use a color coding system. So I have like my 29s are yellow, the 28s are blue, the 27s are orange, 26s are a different kind of like so like each color is different. So when I look at a strategy, I should see those, the right
mhm.
areas. And even still, every so often I'll double a hold and it's like, because when you're doing more and more strategies as you get to have more and more wrestlers, if you decide to expand, um, the chances of that happening are greater. But that's one of the biggest, simplest mistakes that even veterans make.
Mhm.
The other mistake is using the wrong holds. We talked about it earlier, the different federation, or using the values from 2 cycles ago. They didn't update your score, your hold chart, and that can be difficult because yeah, you're in at least the right fed, but all your numbers are off. So, for
Make
example,
sure, yeah, make
yeah,
sure
like
this gets updated right after your bulletin. Get it out of the way.
yeah, if
Keep it clean.
if you join a stable or like have other guys you play with, you probably share strategy forums. You'll come to get better at that. Like I said, there the whole multi part of it with tag teams and 6-man matches. We'll get to that another time. This is just about really making sure you understand kind of the basic concept of scoring high, avoiding the 25s when you're putting your strategy. What you're trying not to get is the same uh don't score poorly because you didn't plan it out. It's if you pay attention, you're going to score decent.
Mhm.
Every so often, we'll see a score like a regular player go like a 475. Most scores should be like 490 to 501. Anything
Yeah,
over the
there's
five, that is,
you might have that really bad luck where you picked the wrong 43, the wrong 44, and the wrong 41 or 42, and one of the holes you picked went to 30, and you thought it was going to 25. You get that perfect mix, you might be in the 480s, but generally, if you follow to this point, yeah, you're going to be in the 490s, and you'll have that chance to hit, pretty high.
All right, so we're almost out of time, but we want to mention, of course, you mentioned earlier, every 3 weeks, right before gold runs, we do the IWAR Gold Strategy Workshop.
Mhm.
And we do is we break down what you saw earlier, kind of the advancer stuff. If you want to show them that, we break down what the options are, so you kind of have an idea of what your better options are. Now, we don't know if it's going to be a 501 or not, but at least we
Right.
put you in the right ballpark
Mhm.
to avoid the wrong drops.
Yeah, you see, we'll tell you. Like I said, we tracked the last couple cycles in our Gold Federation. We know what happened already that cycle, and we marked those off. Hole 25, we said that's an absolute that we always get to use. You see, we marked that off. On the back, we got to use 90 because it was 43. So
Right.
things like that, we'll easily go over them. And that's where you'll start to learn a little more about the point flow, um, and also just a little more about placement of everything. But yeah, in general, once you pick your federation of your league, you need the simple chart here of the 12 front holds, 9 back holds, and then you need to just start doing at least that simple tracking of what happened that cycle and what's happened the past few. And you get to that point, you're set up.
Right.
So,
And you can find us in the game. Our information's out there. You can email us your questions. We're in the gold. This workshop we do is in the Gold Federation, but this basic approach works for any federation.
mhm.
Really, just a matter of
Yeah,
figuring out what the
just
holds
make sure
are.
you use those holds in that federation.
Right.
And like I said, it's different tracking, but it's the exact same thing basically. You got to know
Yeah.
your holds. You got to know the drops. That's it.
Yeah. And
So,
over time you'll get better at it. Give yourself some time to learn. That's why I always say if you're a rookie and new to the game, or if you played a long time ago, start in the NWL. The National Wrestling League is the rookie league, and you have a year's worth of time to really learn the game before you move on to the big leagues. And it's a really fun league too. But it's about having fun. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. Like I said, we do the workshop every 3 weeks. There's a link to it. Uh-oh, we're out of time. There's a link to it on that IWA homepage. And just, leave comments below, and we'll get back to you if we can. So anything else, Mike?
nope, I think that's it. So, yeah, watch a workshop. We'll do another one. Like I said, we'll talk about point flow. We'll actually walk through a little bit like the workshop and show how to pick a strat, and
Yeah.
we'll show a multi combination flows, which, while it sounds intimidating to do, a tag or a 6 when you're just trying to fill out a singles right now, not that bad. It's actually quicker and almost easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, over time you'll get better at it. Just give
Mhm.
yourself time, and more players you meet, the better you'll get over time. Those show chips. So
Yeah,
check in with
little
us
little
again.
things will click very often. Like once you see it a time or two,
Right.
you can make better guesses, and you'll just pick up on little things. It's not bad though.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike, for sharing this, and we'll wish everyone good luck. And be sure to watch our workshop. Thanks, guys.